LinkedIn Live Leadership Series, Voices of Leadership. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Kathy Eastwood, the CEO and founder of Eagles Y and the host of the show. Each week, we explore the fascinating world of leaders and how they find success in what they do. It's the job of the team to deliver results. It's the job of the leader to facilitate and make that happen. And so what we love to do is talk about what really inspires leaders, what they may do differently, and how they build trust among their teams. And trust is going to be a big word. We're going to follow up from last week's session on that. So while we're talking, please feel free to share in the chat where you're calling in from. Let us know, please feel free to share your LinkedIn profile, but also, most importantly, ask questions. This way we can tailor this session to what's on top of mind for you. So let's get started. Last week on Voices of Leadership, we had our guest, a CEO of Provar, Tony Sumter, someone that I've worked with for a long time. And we really got grounded in the foundation of trust and what the definition of trust is. And that he shared its confidence in intent and follow through. So that's really been top of mind for me all week. And I started talking to my really good friend and our guest today, Bill Balnave, saying, you know what, it's great to know what and why and what, trust is, but how? How do you build trust and what happens? And a question that came up last week also is, can you rebuild trust if it's been broken? So that's what we're going to talk about. So Bill, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really excited to have you
Absolutely.
back. You've been here a number of times, I know, but it's always a good and fun debate. So we're going to handle this a little bit differently. Bill and I decided today we'll try to do it less of a direct interview and a back and forth discussion on a few key questions that we're hearing. But I want to start first with the premise and the belief. It's that you can't hire trust. You have to build it. And the statistics tell us, and Gallup is telling us, that only about 19% of people strongly believe they can trust their leadership. 19%. Now it goes up and it could be as high as 48% in some studies, but that's less than half of the people trust their leadership. So that means we got to do something different and we got to rethink this. So Bill, thanks so much for joining me again. When you think about the definition of trust, what Tony shared and your own definition, how would you describe trust?
So I'm gonna use the word that I think some people tend to shy away from a little bit, and I'm going to say that trust is really faith, and it's the belief that when you aren't in control or when you can't see something happening, that you know that the right things are happening anyway, or the things that you believe should be happening are happening anyway. I think it's also acceptance. And this is something that I really thought a lot about after listening to you and Tony last week. Because, it's like, and I know we're going to get into it, so I'll lead the witness a little bit. I feel like a lot of times people are they're just sitting around waiting for their leaders to screw up. And if that's what you're doing, you won't have to wait long. I guarantee you I'm going to screw up. Like, it's going to happen. Like, it's just right. And then that becomes the excuse for, oh, well, I see there's the proof that I don't have to trust you. Well, trust is acceptance. It's acceptance that your leader is not perfect. It's the acceptance that everybody's not perfect. You as a leader, the acceptance that the people that work for you, that you work with, that they're not perfect. They're going to screw up. But what you trust is that their intention is good. They're not screwing up because they're lazy, they're out to get you, they want things to go bad. Like, everybody wakes up with good intentions. And so there's that. I think that's another important aspect of it that you guys didn't really touch on last week. So faith and acceptance, those are the two kind of things that when I think about trust, like, I think those are the two most important aspects of it.
Yeah. And have you, so one of the things I've seen, and you and I went through a session like this, and I know we'll talk about it a little bit, but there's a different level of trust or focus on trust that people come into things, right? So you can either trust to start, or you come at it from a doubt point of view, right? I trust you implicitly. No matter what, I trust everybody. But other people come at it because they have past crap they're carrying, right? And they are gonna. I can't trust you until you prove to me that I should trust you. So have you seen that point of view when you're dealing with other people, that some people are just very trusting from day one and others are looking to, prove it to me. Why should I trust you?
It's interesting. I'm going to challenge you a little bit on the trusting from day one thing because I like to me that just doesn't exist very much anymore, depending on the situation. Like, look, I of course will trust you forever. We know each other. We've got experience and all of that. And I think in other situations where you are getting involved with people that you know, but those are the only situations where the trust is already established. If I'm coming into a new job, I think in today's we were talking about this earlier, today's business climate where like major companies every week seem to be announcing huge layoffs and you see people that are hired in and then they're laid off or there's a reduction in workforce like 6 months later, 9 months later. Like I think there's a low degree of trust. I think the other thing that you see a lot of is talking about side hustles and side gigs and people doing things on TikTok and YouTube and all of that to make money. And you got to watch out for yourself and all of that. Well, that if that's the attitude, let me ask you, expert in leadership and amazing leader yourself, how do you, as a leader today, address that? Because I think you have to assume all of that is swirling around in people's minds. Crazy geopolitical happenings, Jeffrey Epstein, layoffs all the time in tech. All the money belongs to the oligarch and all this stuff. So nobody like people. There's a very, I think, a low level of belief in anybody in a leadership position at this point. So what do you do? How do you get started right? Because people are coming in with that. I doubt you're gonna like. I'm doubting. I need this job, but I'm not. I'm coming in and I'm waiting for you to screw up.
Yeah, I think it definitely starts, and I'll always say this, is know yourself, right? And this sounds a little backwards, but how many people try to show up as a leader and they don't really show up authentically, right? So if you've got a lot of people that are coming at it with, they're already fearful, right? And they have a lot of these preconceived notions. First thing you have to do is know yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, how can you expect someone else to know you? And if you think about trust, you said faith is a big word, right? And you have to have faith and
Yeah.
belief that this person is going to be good, but you have to get to know that person first. And the only way
So,
someone can get to know you, is my belief, is you have to know yourself.
all right. I like this. What do I? Because I love the practical. What do I do with that then? What do I do with knowing myself? How do I apply that to starting out on the right foot as a leader?
It so when you know yourself, and I mean you've done your E3 leadership profile, right? You've
Eh,
done this hard work of self-reflection. What do you do with that once you have that knowledge? What have you done?
Well, it certainly helps me to articulate as I'm meeting somebody. It helps me to articulate who I am. Like I don't really have to, right? Like I have that to me is deep knowledge. I can be unconsciously competent in talking about myself. And there's a level of confidence in me being honest as well because I've gone through that process of like getting to know myself and who I want to be.
Right. But my point is you share it. So the first thing you
Yes.
do
Yeah,
is,
you share it.
here's who I am, right? I've done a lot of work. I know who I am, how I show up, how I can be perceived. I'm going to share that with you. So you're not trying to find it, right? Like, how often do we let people have to figure us out on their own?
Yeah, it's interesting you say it, and as I'm thinking about it, like I remember when I first created my E3 profile, and I was hiring somebody. or like the team had changed or whatever, there were going to be some new people, and you were like, well, you got to do the next team meeting. You have to do your profile. Or I think there was another time where I was starting someplace, and you're like, well, okay, you're going to show them your profile, right? And I'm like you get very self conscious. I'm like, they don't really want to hear that. I'll tell you, it's so wrong. I think a lot of people have that impression of like, well, that's personal and that's not business, and so I don't mix the personal and the business, and people don't want to hear about the personal stuff. Of course they do, 100%. And you helped me get over that. It took me a while to get over that. That notion, like, oh, I'm sharing personal stuff, like that nobody cares about this, or I'm being arrogant because oh, of course they want to hear about me. Yeah, but they do. At the end of the day, they do, because you're just a person, they're people, and that's how you get to know each other. And if you don't start like that, yeah, then it's hard to build trust.
Well, have you ever trusted anyone else that you didn't know personally?
I'm a sucker, though. I feel like I'm an outlier. You know what? I do that less now. and
Yeah,
and certainly I'll tell you what, I can think of a couple of examples, and I think you know these examples of where I trusted somebody without really getting to know them, and it didn't work out so well.
yeah. I think there's a balance, right? When you think about this, um, you've got the trust element, and I go with, you've heard, you said it, like, assume good intent. I think we have to walk into every a situation and trust that people are going to show up with good intent. And if they don't show up the way we think, then wonder if there's something else is going on that we can't see. So, but I think that's different than implicitly trusting someone fully. And I think you still have to build that relationship up to get to know them. How do they show up? How are they going to be when they're stressed, etc.
Yeah, Cap, I would take that even further and say, like, if I'm honest, like if I'm genuinely honest, there are a very small number of people that to your point, implicitly trust. Like, I just trust regardless. There's I think, so I'm reinforcing what you're saying, which is, yeah, it takes a lot to build that up. You and I have known each other for 20 some years. I implicitly trust you because of that, right? Like, I implicitly trust my wife because of the experience. Like, I've known you longer, but like because of the experiences that we've had together and the time that we've spent and what we've shared and all of that. But then, man, there are a lot of other people in my life that, yeah, I love them and all that, and they're great. But like, there's still like, I wouldn't say that I implicitly trust them.
But when you've taken the time to build that relationship, get to know them, and consciously build the trust, do you find the working relationship is more productive and it works better?
So 100%, 100%. And when the screw up happens, because it's always going to happen, it makes it possible to recover from that, because you, like, spending time, you're getting to know the person, know that person as a person and not a business colleague or your manager or whatever. And I think that allows you then to yeah, to deal with some of the tougher times, or the thing, the hiccups when they happen.
Yeah. So, we kind of talk about intent, right? Knowing yourself, sharing it, that's the intent. You put it out there of, here's who I am. This is how I intend to show up. This is how I want you to think about how I show up. But then it gets to the follow through, right? And this was Tony's definition, the confidence in your intent and follow through. So you can say, this is how I intend to show up, but then it becomes the follow through, right? Actually doing what you say you're going to do, whether it's being on time, delivering with quality, being competent, consistent, whatever everybody's motivators are different. What do you think gets in the way for people um, that causes them not to trust or to hold back? What have you seen?
Look, I think there's a few things, right? I think one of them is what you and I just talked about. Like, when things aren't personal, when you as a leader aren't providing the opportunity for people to get to know you, and when you're not getting to know your people. I think that's a huge barrier. I think the lack of communication, lack of, I'll call it FaceTime. Like I think of um 2016 when I took over the pre-sales team and the SE team in EMEA for Aptio. And like first year that I was there, I thought I was doing really good. And I was doing my review with the general manager. And he's like, hey, so some of the feedback that I have from the other SEs is that they want to feel more like a team. And I'm like, what? What do you mean they don't feel like a team? Like, we are a team. Like, what? And he's like, and he said, like you seem to cancel team meetings regularly, and you seem to like avoid one-on-ones when there's nothing to talk about. And I'm like, here I was thinking I was doing something good, like people want another meeting. And actually, what they want was to know that I was going to be there every week at this time. Like, didn't matter if there was anything to talk about. Like, is Bill going to be there? Is he there? And and what I didn't think about at the time was that the person who had managed the team before me was actually more concerned about chasing his own deals and doing his own things. And so he like would regularly just cancel meetings for his reasons. And I was like repeating that behavior, not really knowing it. And like at the end of the day, they just wanted me to be there. I didn't have to have an agenda. There didn't have to be anything, but it was that consistency of like, show up on Friday, do the team meeting. Like, we don't need topics. Just let's get on and talk to each other. Like, we just want to know you're that. Like, to me, if you're not doing those things, like those are barriers to being able to build trust.
Yeah, I agree. There's two elements I think we always look at. Is one is what motivates people, right? And you talk about it in your book, Wasabi Tech Sales, right? Of that Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right?
Yeah.
We call it the WIPM in equals Y, but there's motivators we have, and that you have to connect to people's motivators.
Yep.
Right? Why are they going to trust you? Why are they going to get on board? They got to know their whys, etc. On the other side, then you have the barriers, right? So the feud, the fear, the egos, the uncertainty and doubt. How do you balance the two when you think about it? Which is, how do you, I guess, do you use the positive motivators to help overcome some of the fears, uncertainty, and doubt people have?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Like, I guess I don't know. I was always like, me. I just want to jump into it. So to me, addressing the FUD was like, I don't know, like calling it out in the room, bringing it up, like just like addressing it directly. I think a lot of I think a lot of people as leaders are afraid to do it. I also think that there are leaders who do it, but they do it maybe inappropriately, because sometimes you address it with the crowd, sometimes you address it with the individual, those kinds of things. I don't know. Is this what you were? Am I answering the question that you asked, or
Yeah,
my?
it's about, like, what we're trying to get to is like what keeps people from trusting someone, right? So, you were talking about this team, your group didn't feel like a team because they couldn't, in some ways, trust you, or you're going to show up, right? And
Yeah, to Rich. So if I'm looking at the chat, to Rich Polton's point, Rich, very good to see you. Glad you're here. Thanks for joining, buddy. History of broken promises and lack of communication. Yes, and I think not being aware of the history of broken promises and lack of communication. And had I maybe done a better job in that first of year of getting to know my people, I probably would have uncovered that stuff and been able to adjust accordingly. So bringing it all the way back to what you started with, Kathy, which is like, yeah, getting to know your people, expressing yourself, getting to know
yeah, it
them
starts with
as
yourself,
people.
right? Know yourself. And then when you do that
Yep.
exercise, then you've asked, and I know you've done this now with your teams going forward, you ask them to do their profiles.
Yeah. 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 Look, when I was at Pyramid Analytics and and we did that stuff, uh, like that, the consequence of that to me was eye-opening, because here were a group of people that had been at the same company for a long time and didn't know each other, and I just assumed that they did. guys have all been, I mean, y'all had 4 years or more at the company. Like, how do you not know each other? And all of a sudden realize that, like, that's not the case. So maybe there's another barrier, by the way, to trust, which is making the assumption that it's already there or people know each other or whatever. And you shouldn't make that assumption.
Yeah, it's interesting. As you were just saying that, I'm thinking back to our premise. We said you can't hire trust, right? You need to build it. It's the same way you can't walk in. You might have been the most successful leader in the previous organization. You might have delivered amazing results, but you can't expect to just walk in with the same playbook and start executing and think everyone's going to get on board with you.
100%. And you should not also walk in with like you thinking that's the expectation that people want. By the way, that people want your playbook because
Yeah, yeah,
they don't. They don't want your playbook unless they know you, unless they get to know you and trust you first. They don't. Otherwise, they don't care about your playbook.
yeah. So that trust really takes effort, right? Of okay, deliberate. Here's who I am, being vulnerable, right? Here's a big word to build trust is that
Yeah,
vulnerability, right?
yeah,
Hey, I'm
for
going to put
sure.
it all on the table. I'm not perfect. Here's what I intend to do. And I love what Rich is saying now, like foster the team, but do it genuinely, right? You can't just say, trust me. I trust you, and therefore you should trust me. It doesn't work.
People's phony meters are definitely turned up to a high gain nowadays. Yeah, like people tend to sniff that out very quickly.
Yeah. So one of the questions, we've been presented with is, can you rebuild trust? I think this kind of comes into play here a little bit, even with if you're walking into a situation that you're new, right? So I don't know if you're necessarily rebuilding trust, but I think you're always building trust, right?
So that I think 100% for sure. You're always building trust. Period. End of story with everybody and with everybody in your life. Like that's any with any relationship, right? I think the difference in the workplace is the business nature of it and like especially when you're a people manager and it's your job to to drive results, to get results out of people, then like yes, you constantly have to be building trust. But when you talk about can trust be rebuilt, like I think it depends on who broke it in how you rebuild it. When you and I had kind of maybe talked about it before in the context of doing the session now, the assumption that I made was, well, if I'm the one that rebuilt that broke the trust, can I rebuild it? I hadn't thought about the situation that I found myself in 10 years ago, walking into a situation where the previous leader
Mm.
had broken the trust with the team, and I was kind of unaware of that, and it was my job to rebuild it, even though I had not originally broken it.
Wow, that's a great way to look at
Right?
it,
It's an
right?
existing team,
Yeah, I get it. And so you're responsible for rebuilding trust that you weren't even involved in.
broken by somebody else that I didn't have anything to do with, wasn't my fault. But all of those things would then, of course, be assumed on me because that was their experience. And then, man, like thinking about it now, and like I just walked right into the same behaviors, not with the same intention, same behaviors, but how are they to know that they didn't. And I will tell you,
Yeah,
my second year there was way, way different than my first year because we had team meetings every week and I never missed a one-on-one. And like it made a huge difference in, I think, just people's genuine job satisfaction and happiness with working there and all of that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, we're gonna ask Rich. It sounds like Rich might have been on the team. So
He wasn't, by the way.
oh,
Rich, no, I don't. Rich was not an FDO, so it's not a, yeah.
okay.
Rich,
But
Rich has never had the displeasure of having to work for me. So
it's interesting when you think about it, because can you break something you haven't built? But do you have to? I think you have to deliberately set yourself up to build the trust, and that starts with A, knowing yourself, but B, defining what trust means, right, among the team. So it's not just what it means to me, but what it means to you and everyone else on the team can really be different, right? Like some people take it really personal if you're late to a meeting.
Yeah, yeah.
And so
Well,
you
and
break trust that way.
let's make sure we don't talk about the team as the team, because what is the team? First of all, you can't build trust with the team.
With the team. It's the individuals on the team.
And every one of those individuals is going to have a different starting point, right? And like the man, like we talk about trust so much, Kath, and I never had really thought about, like, as a new leader going into meeting a team or putting a new team together, like I almost feel like you need to sit down with like a little graph, a little trust spectrum, and be like, okay, where's Rich on the trust spectrum based on, like, as I'm getting like that, the first thing I need to do is to uncover, like, how broken is it? How much work do I have to do with each individual to build that trust? Because it's not the same level of work, because everybody's going to be coming from a different place.
Yeah. And one of the things I've coached people on is actually creating a relationship heat map. So as you're onboarding, you create a list
Yeah.
for all your stakeholders. And right off the bat, what do you think? Red, yellow, and green, do you have a good relationship with them? And you have to define what red means, what yellow means, and what green, right? What does great look like? What is a great relationship? What does teaming, trusting mean for this person and me? And do we have it?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I think back to we had a scenario when we were at HP Software. I know we've talked about this a bunch, you and I, and analyze it. But if you remember, we had a team, we had to go through massive, massive transformation. And
Yeah.
we had a team that we had a vision, but it was hard. We were all very, very different. And how we showed up, in some cases, we got along. Some of us got along really well. Some of us found some traits irritating. We were not on the same page working as one team.
No, no, it's interesting. Like I think about that time now, and like it's like I wish I could go back and watch the video. Like it would be a great case study, because you're right that we were all very different people. There were some that I knew, some that I had not met at all, and but we were thrown into this situation. I know for me personally, like I think if I look back now, I spent more time thinking about, one, what did we need to get done? Like we have to get stuff done. What do we need to get done? And then two, how can I make sure that I make a big contribution and show up and be like a big player? And man, and then three, like, did I think about getting to know everybody? Uh,
You're too busy running to the door, right?
I
Like,
will, like we got to get stuff done, and if you guys weren't keeping up, it was like that. You don't get it, so why would I bother with you? And what a horrible, like, I would go back and I would tell that person 25 years ago, like, no, dude, you gotta 20 years ago, you gotta flip the script. That, like, my priorities were completely upside down, and if I had flipped them over, if we had all done that. Now, the good news is I feel like we all got there
we did.
to
Yeah.
varying degrees,
But
right?
it took intention, right? It didn't just happen. We sat down in a room one day in a couple of days, right? And started to build a teaming agreement. Who are we each, right? Like we were doing the E3 leadership profile, whether we realized it or not back then, right? We
Yeah.
understood our personalities, how we like to show up, what fears, uncertainty, and doubts we all had, right? Like I needed a plan. I tried to tell myself, remember that day? I'm like, I don't need a plan. And like all of you went,
What are you
uh,
talking
you
about?
always
Yeah,
need
you
a
do.
plan. Your plan is that you have no plan,
we we
right?
can't eat lunch unless you have a plan. What are you talking about? Of course you can have a plan.
But like once we put all of our needs and our fears, uncertainties, and doubts on the table, suddenly we didn't take any of the stuff personally. It was like, oh, wait a minute. So your need for a plan isn't to micromanage me. It's just your own fear of failure.
It's interesting, Kathy. Like, yeah, and I think about two elements that I think were important to kind of allowing all of that to happen for us to like get to know each other. One of those elements was, I think our boss at the time made the effort to make sure that we would get together socially as well as work wise. right? So we were put into situations where we had to hang out with each other and have fun, and we did. I think the other thing that would say was a big catalyst to that was you did a very good job of acknowledging other people, reading the room, and like trying to pull people in and keep things going. Where I would be like, guys, I'm already down the road. Like, I can't wait for you. And you would pull me back, and other people would be on the fence, like, well, God, we got to think about this and we got to go. And you'd be like, no, no, we don't have time for that. Like, maybe you didn't realize you were doing it, but you were like acknowledging maybe unconsciously kind of what everybody else was doing, and you were making the effort of like, nope, let's keep the group together. Like, everybody has to be part of this, everybody has to contribute. You did focus on like, how do we keep this whole thing going together so that it doesn't come apart, and it didn't.
Yeah.
So
But
for
it
what
wasn't,
it's worth.
I mean, that was a lot of work. And if you think back to that, so we spent a lot of time as a leadership team, right, coming together as one. And we were like, okay, we've got a big change. We have to be
Yep.
aligned. We have to work together. Here's how we work, right? We had to put out there, we need to trust each other, right? And we said, we're going to trust no matter what. If you remember that trust still. And if
Yep.
you if you do something,
Took that lesson.
yeah, if you do something to cause me to not trust you, my responsibility is to call you on it.
Yeah.
Right. So if you would say, I promise that I am not going to run without making sure everyone's on board. And as soon as you were like running to the door, I'd be like, Bill, and you're like, okay, got it. But it was a mutual respect
Yeah.
of, I knew your tendencies, you knew my tendency, because you'd be like, Kath, do we really need a plan for everything? And I'm like, no, you're right. Okay, thanks for the reminder. Right. And once we got to that point of being able to clearly communicate, right, we knew what our intentions were. Our intentions were good. We all believed it. Now it was follow through and holding each other accountable. Like, you can't hold other people accountable until you have that level of trust and say, we're in this together.
100%.
But then what we learned from there, and I know we're going over you. Are you okay?
Yeah, yeah, I got a couple minutes, of course.
We then learned, because now we're rolling this out. We assumed we were on board. We were good. Remember trying to roll it out to the rest of the organization, going down to the
Oh
individual
yeah.
levels and rolling it
Oh
out
yeah.
to other, because we were in the pre-sales organization, but we had to get sales on board. We had to get marketing, product, right? Like, we had to bring this across multiple functions. Not easy.
No, no, it was not. It was not at all. And I would say, like, I learned a ton about communication in that, in 9 months or a year or whatever it was, of us kind of trying to work through all of this, because yeah, it is not easy, and I know I definitely screwed a bunch of things up.
We all have, but I think it goes back to our intention, right? And working at it. And I, I love the chat. Rich is
We're,
coming up with some great
we're
stuff,
just
right?
jamming, yeah.
Saying, I'm going to put this one up on the show here for a second, right? You still have to earn trust, and it's hard to get back from a deficit, right? Like trying to fill a colander with water. Absolutely, you're spot on, Rich. But I think it is possible. And the point that we're trying to make is, yeah, you're going to screw up sometimes, but you really have to work on it and be intentional about building that trust. Um,
Yes.
and that's what
Yeah, you
leadership
have to.
is really about.
That's got to be an important focus, and you shouldn't lose that focus. And I think you lose it in two ways. One, because you don't consider it in the beginning, and so you just keep going on. Or two, you do consider it, and you get to a point where you feel happy about the trust, and then you don't consider it anymore. Like, and you forget that you always need to be thinking about it, and making it important.
Yeah. When do you find sometimes you fall back into the not so good habits in leadership?
When things are going well.
Interesting.
When things are going well, I don't like, well, yeah, things are good. I don't have to worry about that stuff. Like, everything's great.
So you fall back into your habits there. Interesting. I fall back into some of my habits when the not so good habits when I'm stressed. and I'm like, I know I need to bring everyone in. I have to help them feel included. But when I'm stressed, my need for a plan comes out double.
I've never experienced that before.
Yes, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, but I think that's why it's so important as leaders to understand when you show up at your best, when so first, here's my intention. Here's how this is what good looks like. This is what I need. This is what I want to do. Here's how we should communicate your responsibilities. And then recognize when you might not excel at the best. I mean, that's conscious leadership at its best, of being aware at all times of what else is going on. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. So we could talk about this all day long. And
Clearly.
What's one piece of advice you want to leave for a leader? Like if they could do something different tomorrow, whether they're starting with a new team or they've got a team they don't feel are all rowing in the same direction.
Look, Kathy, I'm gonna say what you said back at the beginning, which is you really need to know yourself. It has to start there. And if you are not in a place where you have a regular practice of things, where you not just know yourself but reinforce yourself, where you don't have a routine, where you get your mindset straight on a regular basis, and I would say to you every morning, like, that's the best thing that you could possibly do. You get into a habit of, like, you're up. Like I tell people, like, you should get a workout in. You should have some quiet time, some meditation. You should journal to yourself. You should put your E3 profile out, look at it. Like, no, honestly, like, get grounded. If you're not doing that every day, or like a lot, yeah, then it's hard for you to have the wherewithal, the self-awareness to, just to know how to build trust and all of that. That's the most important. I think it's the most important thing you do.
I love it. And I'd say one other thing that you taught me at some point was the importance of getting feedback. And one of these reflections, like it's one thing to know yourself and do the internal reflection, but you put yourself out there, I'll never forget, and really did 360s. And you said, let me know how I really show up, right? Not how I think I show up and not how I intend to show up, but how do I come across to you?
Yeah, how do you see me showing up? Because how I think I show up is irrelevant.
Yeah. And that's another really big element to all of it. So, Bill, thank you.
I agree.
Thank you so
I
much.
love it. I always do. Yeah, my pleasure.
And of course, I am going to do the plug. So if anyone is starting to question, like, what is this E3 leadership profile? How do you start to know yourself? How do you share it with your organization, build trust? Please check out our E3 Leadership Bootcamp. We have a new session starting on February 25th. And this is really a program for anyone at different levels and different experiences. We have CEOs that go through it. We have, managers that are really starting to learn how to elevate their game. It's that opportunity to reflect, know yourself, and to build trust within your teams.
I'm going to reinforce the plug because I've gone through it. It's fantastic. Even if you are not a people manager, what it can do for you as an individual, still huge value. Huge value. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks, everyone. We appreciate it. Have a great
Yeah.
weekend. Bill, thanks. And we'll
Thank you.
talk soon. Thanks.
That's good.